The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret, a sterile cage where my memories should have been. I woke up 3 months ago with no name, no past, and a stranger's face staring at me with eyes that begged for something I couldn't give. His name was Ethan, he said, and I was Julian, but who was Julian to him? I didn't know Ethan's laugh, the way his hands fidgeted when he was nervous, or why he looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him alive. The doctors called it retrograde amnesia, a cruel thief that stole 28 years of my life, leaving only fragments too faint to grasp. Ethan, with his warm brown eyes and disheveled dark hair, was a puzzle piece that didn't fit the empty jigsaw of my mind. He visited every day, bringing coffee I didn't drink and stories I didn't remember, his voice trembling with a hope I couldn't return. We were in a small town in Oregon, he told me, a place called Willow Creek where we'd built a life together. A life I couldn't picture. A life that felt like a lie. The hospital walls closed in daily, their pale blue paint mocking my confusion. I wanted out of the bed, out of this town, out of the weight of Ethan's expectations. I'm leaving, I said one evening, my voice flat, testing the words. His face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw tears in his eyes, tears that stirred something deep inside me, something I wasn't ready to face. I was discharged a week later, and Ethan drove me to a house I was supposed to call home. It was a modest craftsman with a wraparound porch, the kind of place that screamed, "We planned forever here." The living room was cluttered with photos of us lying at a beach, kissing under Christmas lights, holding hands in some city I didn't recognize. Each image was a stab, a reminder of a love I couldn't feel. Ethan watched me study them, his silence louder than any words. "Do you remember anything?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, and his shoulders sagged, like I'd taken something vital from him. He tried to rebuild what we had. He cooked my favorite meals, at least, what he claimed were my favorites. Pasta with marinara, burnt at the edges because I apparently liked it that way. I ate in silence, the taste unfamiliar, while he filled the quiet with stories of our past. "We met at a bookstore," he said one night, his fork hovering over his plate. "You were looking for poetry, and I was pretending to read philosophy to impress you." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I nodded, wanting to believe him, wanting to feel something other than this hollow ache. Days turned into weeks, and I felt like an actor in someone else's life. Willow Creek was suffocating, its small-town charm a facade for nosy neighbors and pitying glances. They all knew me, or the old me Julian, the graphic designer who loved hiking and Ethan. Now I was a stranger in my own skin, dodging questions at the grocery store and avoiding Ethan's hopeful gaze. I started running in the mornings, hoping the rhythm of my feet on the pavement would jog something loose in my mind. It didn't. The park near our house became my refuge, its quiet paths a place to escape Ethan's quiet desperation. One morning, I found a journal in the nightstand drawer, its pages filled with my handwriting. The entries were love letters to Ethan, raw and unfiltered, detailing moments I couldn't recall, our first kiss in the rain, the night we stayed up talking about our fears, the way he made me feel safe. I read until my chest hurt, until the words blurred with tears I didn't understand. Why couldn't I feel this? Why couldn't I love him back? I slammed the journal shut, my breath ragged, and made a decision. I couldn't keep pretending. I had to leave for my sake, for his. That evening, I packed a bag. Ethan was in the kitchen, humming softly as he chopped vegetables for dinner. The normalcy of it felt like a betrayal. "I'm going," I said, standing in the doorway, my voice steadier than I felt. He froze, the knife still in his hand. "What?" he whispered, turning to face me. His eyes were wide, searching, and I hated how much it hurt to look at him. "I can't do this, Ethan. I don't know you." I don't know us. My words were a blade, and I saw them cut him open. He set the knife down, his hands shaking. You don't mean that, he said, stepping closer. You just need time. Julian. We can figure this out together. His voice cracked, and tears spilled down his cheeks. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Something in his tears, in the raw pain of his expression, hit me like a wave. A memory flickered brief, fleeting, but real. His face, younger, laughing under a streetlight. My heart stuttered, and for a moment, I felt him. Not the stranger in front of me, but Ethan. I didn't leave that night. I couldn't. Not because I remembered everything, but because his tears anchored me to something I wasn't ready to let go. We sat on the couch, silent, the space between us heavy with unspoken questions. I didn't know if I could love him again, but for the first time, I wanted to try. The days after I almost left were fragile, like walking on glass. Ethan moved carefully around me, his every word measured, his every glance searching for a spark of recognition. I stayed because of that fleeting memory in the kitchen, but doubt not it could a single moment rebuild what years had created. Willow Creek was relentless in its familiarity. The coffee shop barista called me by name. The librarian asked about a book I'd borrowed last year, and every corner held echoes of a life I couldn't claim. Ethan tried to bridge the gap, suggesting walks, dinners, even a movie night with a film he swore I loved. I went along, hoping routine would stir something. It didn't. The park remained my escape, its solitude a balm for the chaos in my head. I ran longer each morning, chasing clarity, chasing myself. One afternoon, Ethan suggested we visit the bookstore where we met. It might help, he said, his voice soft but insistent. I agreed, more for him than for me. The shop was a cozy, cluttered space with creaky floors and shelves stuffed with books. Ethan led me to the poetry section, his fingers brushing the spines. You picked up Whitman that day, he said, pulling out a worn copy of Leaves of Grass. You read me a line, and I was done for. He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I took the book, flipping through its pages, willing myself to feel something. Nothing came. Back home, I found another journal entry. This one dated a year ago. It described a fight, our first big one. I'd been stressed about a freelance project, and Ethan had pushed me to open up. We'd yelled, then laughed, then made love on the living room floor. The entry ended with, "He's my home, even when we're a mess." My throat tightened. I wanted that certainty, that anchor. But all I felt was the weight of his love, heavy and unearned. Ethan's friends started showing up, people who claimed to know me. Sarah, a bubbly artist, brought sketches I'd supposedly critiqued. Mark, a gruff mechanic, told stories of camping trips we'd taken. They were kind, but their memories were ghosts, haunting me with a life I couldn't touch. One night, Sarah invited us to a gallery opening, insisting it would be like old times. The gallery was crowded, the air thick with wine and chatter. I wandered, pretending to study the art, while Ethan stayed close, his presence both comforting and suffocating. A painting caught my eye, a vibrant abstract of two figures intertwined, their colors bleeding into each other. Something stirred, a faint pulse of recognition. I turned to Ethan, who was watching me with that familiar hope. Did I like this kind of art? I asked. His face lit up. You loved it. You said it felt like usmacy, but beautiful. For the first time, I smiled without forcing it. It wasn't a memory, but it was something. That night, we really talked. Not about the past, but about now. He told me about his job as a high school teacher, his love for history, his fear of losing me. I admitted how lost I felt, how his love felt like a debt I couldn't pay. I don't want you to feel that way, he said, his voice raw. I just want you to be you, whoever that is now. His honesty disarmed me, and for a moment, I saw him not as a stranger, but as a man fighting for something real. The next day, I found a photo album in the attic, tucked in a box with old letters and ticket stubs. The photos were candid as hiking, cooking, dancing at a wedding. One showed Ethan asleep on my chest, my hand in his hair. The intimacy of it hit me hard, a reminder of what I'd lost. I didn't remember the moment, but I felt its echo, a warmth that lingered. I showed Ethan the album, and we sat on the floor, flipping through it. He laughed at some photos, cried at others. I didn't cry, but I held his hand, and that felt like enough. Time became a strange companion, both healer and tormentor. 6 months after the accident, I was still a stranger to myself, but Ethan's presence was less an intrusion and more a quiet constant. The journals, the photos, the stories, they were threads, fragile but persistent, weaving a tapestry I couldn't fully see. Willow Creek's autumn arrived, painting the town in fiery hues. Ethan suggested a hike, one we'd done countless times. He said. I agreed, craving fresh air and a break from the house's suffocating nostalgia. The trail wound through dense forest, the air crisp with pine and earth. Ethan walked ahead, pointing out landmarks, a tree we'd carved our initials into, a clearing where we'd picnicked. I nodded, but the places felt foreign, like pages from someone else's book. At the trail's peak, we sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking, the kind that demanded silence. Ethan broke it, his voice soft. We came here after our first anniversary. You said it felt like the world was ours. I looked at him, his profile sharp against the sunset, and felt a pang, not a memory, but a longing to know that moment. I wish I could feel that, I said. He turned, his eyes searching mine. You will. Someday. His faith was a lifeline, but it also scared me. What if I never remembered? Back home, I started therapy, something I'd resisted until now. Dr. Larson, a kind woman with sharp questions, pushed me to confront the void in my mind. You're not just looking for memories, she said. You're building a new self. Her words stuck, and I began to see Ethan differently, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but as someone choosing to stay, despite my distance. That realization shifted something in me, subtle but real. One night, Ethan brought out a guitar, one I'd apparently played. He handed it to me, his expression hopeful. My fingers fumbled, but the chords came naturally, muscle memory overriding the blankness in my mind. I played a simple melody, and Ethan sang along, his voice warm and off-key. We laughed, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of joy, not borrowed from the past, but born in that moment. You're still you, he said, his eyes shining. I didn't know if he was right, but I wanted him to be. The town's annual harvest festival arrived, a chaotic blend of music, food, and fairy lights. Ethan convinced me to go, promising it would be fun. The crowd was overwhelming, but his hand in mine grounded me. We danced to a local band, my steps clumsy but earnest. A memory flashed brief. Vividus dancing in a similar crowd, his laughter in my ear. I froze, gripping his hand tighter. What's wrong? He asked. I told him, and his face lit up, hope reigniting. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the wall between me and my past. Later, we sat by a bonfire, the heat warming our faces. He told me about his family, how they'd struggled to accept us at first but came around. Your mom sent us a quilt for our first Christmas here, he said, pointing to the house. It's on our bed. I didn't remember the quilt, but I imagined it, stitched with love and compromise. I leaned against him, my head on his shoulder, and he didn't pull away. It wasn't love not yet, but it was trust. And that was enough. Winter crept into Willow Creek, blanketing the town in snow and silence. The house felt warmer with Ethan's effort scandals on the table. A fire in the hearth, but my mind remained a cold, uncharted place. The fragments of memory, like the dance at the festival, were fleeting, leaving me hungry for more. Therapy with Dr. Larson grew intense. She had me write letters to my old self, a strange exercise that felt like talking to a ghost. Dear Julian, I wrote, why did you love him? The question haunted me, but the act of writing stirred something: anger, grief, curiosity. Ethan read one of the letters when I left it out, his eyes misty. You don't have to love me, he said, but I'm glad you're asking. His patience was a mirror, reflecting a strength I didn't know I had. Christmas approached, and Ethan insisted on decorating. We strung lights on a lopsided tree, laughing when it nearly toppled. He pulled out a box of ornaments, each with a story. One, a tiny ceramic heart, was from our first Christmas together. You made this, he said, placing it in my hand. The weight of it felt familiar, and my fingers traced its edges, searching for a memory that didn't come. But I hung it on the tree, and Ethan's smile was brighter than the lights. A snowstorm hit, trapping us inside for days. We played cards, watched old movies, and talked about everything but the past. I told him about my runs, how the park felt like the only place I could breathe. He listened, really listened, and I realized I was starting to care about his reactions. One night, snow piling high outside, he cooked chili and burned it, just like I supposedly liked. We ate, laughing at the charred taste, and I felt a warmth that wasn't from the fire. The new year brought a breakthrough. During a therapy session, I remembered a fight, not the one from the journal, but a different one. We were in a car, rain pounding the windshield, arguing about moving to a bigger city. I saw Ethan's face, tense but tender, saying, I'd follow you anywhere. The memory was sharp, cutting through the fog. I told him that night, and he grabbed my hands, his voice shaking. That was real, Julian. That was us. For the first time, I believed him. But doubt lingered. What if these memories were all I'd get? What if I could never love him the way he deserved? I started pulling away, spending more time alone, running until my lungs burned. Ethan noticed, his questions gentle but persistent. Are you okay? He'd ask, and I'd nod, lying to us both. The truth was, I was scared of failing him, scared of never being whole. One evening, I found a letter Ethan had written to me, tucked in the back of my journal. It was dated the day of my accident. Julian, I'm sorry we fought. I love you more than I know how to say. Come back to me. The words broke something open in me, and I cried for the first time since waking up. I didn't know if I could come back, but I wanted to try for him, for us. Spring arrived, softening Willow Creek's edges with green and bloom. The memories came more often now, snippets of laughter, Ethan's hand in mine, a kiss in the rain. They were sparks, not a fire, but they gave me hope. Ethan felt it too, his smiles less guarded, his touch more certain. We started rebuilding, not the past, but something new. He took me to a local art class, remembering my love for design. I sketched, my hands remembering what my mind couldn't. Ethan praised my work, his pride genuine, and I felt a flicker of who I'd been. At home, we cooked together, his patience with my clumsy chopping a quiet kind of love. I began to notice his habits, the way he hummed off key, the way he left books open on every surface, and they became familiar, comforting. But the fear lingered. What if I was only mimicking love, playing a role to ease his pain? I voiced this to Dr. Larson, who challenged me to define love on my terms. It's not about remembering, she said. It's about choosing. Her words echoed in my runs. In the quiet moments when Ethan thought I wasn't watching him. I was choosing him, wasn't I? One day, we drove to the coast. A trip Ethan said we'd loved. The ocean was wild, waves crashing against cliffs, and we walked the shore, wind tugging at our clothes. He told me about our first trip here, how I proposed on a whim, both of us laughing through tears. I didn't remember, but I felt the weight of that moment in his voice. I reached for his hand, and he squeezed mine, his warmth grounding me. Back in Willow Creek, tension crept in. Ethan's sister, Claire, visited, her presence stirring unease. She was kind but blunt, questioning if I was really in this for Ethan. Her doubt mirrored my own, and it stung. That night, I confronted Ethan, my voice sharp. What if I never remember? What if this is all I can give you? He looked at me, steady despite the hurt in his eyes. Then I'll take it. I love you, Julian, not some version of you I'm waiting for. His words broke me open. I kissed him, not out of memory, but knee draw, present, real. It wasn't the same as before, but it was ours. We made love that night, and for the first time, I felt him, not the ghost of us. Afterward, lying in his arms, I whispered, I'm trying. He kissed my forehead, his breath warm. That's enough. But it wasn't. Not yet. The memories were still fragments, and I wanted more not just for him, but for me. I doubled down in therapy, pushing through the pain of empty spaces. Dr. Larson suggested hypnosis, a last resort. I was skeptical but desperate. The session was strange, my mind drifting through fog, but a memory surfaced: Ethan and I in a diner, sharing fries, planning a future. It was small, but it was mine. Summer burned bright in Willow Creek, the air thick with heat and possibility. The memories were coming faster now, flashes of Ethan's laugh, our late-night talks, the way he'd tease me about my terrible dancing. They weren't enough to rebuild a life, but they were enough to make me want to. Ethan sensed the shift. He was bolder, planning dates like we were starting over. We went kayaking on the river, my arms aching but my heart light as he splashed me, laughing. We visited a farmer's market, his hand steady in mine as we sampled peaches and argued about which was sweetest. These moments weren't memories, they were new, and they were ours. But the past wasn't done with us. One evening, a man showed up at our door. Tom, an old friend from college. Ethan said. His presence unsettled me, his casual references to the old Julian grating. Over dinner, he mentioned a trip we'd all taken to Seattle, a memory I didn't have. You were so in love with Ethan, Tom said, his tone wistful. It was annoying. Ethan laughed, but I saw the flicker of pain in his eyes. I excused myself, needing air, needing space. In the park, I sat on our bench, the one from the image prompt, and read another journal entry. It was from 2 years ago, after a fight with Tom. He doesn't get us, but you do. You're my everything. The words hit hard, and I realized I was jealous not of Tom, but of the Julian who'd written them, who'd loved Ethan without question. I wanted to be him again. When I got home, Ethan was waiting, his face tight with worry. I'm sorry about Tom, he said. I didn't know he'd upset you. I shook my head, sitting beside him. It's not him. It's me. I want to remember. Ethan. I want to love you like I did. He pulled me close, his voice fierce. You're doing it now? Every day? You're choosing me. His words were a lifeline, and I clung to them. We started couples therapy, a new step. The therapist, Dr. Chun, was direct, pushing us to confront our fears. Ethan admitted he was scared I'd leave again, that I'd never fully come back. I admitted I was scared of letting him down. We cried. We fought. We laughed. And through it all, I felt us growing stronger, not the old us, but a new version, forged in honesty. One night, I dreamed of our proposal, the one Ethan had described. It was vivid, me on one knee, the ocean roaring, his shocked laugh. I woke up crying, Ethan's arms around me before I could explain. I told him, and he held me tighter, his tears mixing with mine. "You're coming back," he whispered. I wasn't sure, but I hoped. Fall returned, a year since my accident. The memories were no longer just sparks, they were flames. Small but steady. I remembered more of Ethan, his quirks, our fights, the quiet moments that made us us. But the gaps remained, and I wondered if they always would. We decided to renew our vows, not as a recreation of the past, but as a promise for now. The ceremony was small, just us and a few friends in the park, under the same bench from that first image. I wore a simple jacket, Ethan a sweater that made his eyes glow. Sarah officiated, her voice warm as she spoke of love's resilience. I looked at Ethan, his hands in mine, and felt it love, not borrowed, not remembered, but real. "I choose you," I said, my voice steady. "Not because I remember, but because I know you now." His eyes filled with tears, and he laughed, pulling me into a kiss. The crowd cheered, but all I heard was his heartbeat, steady against mine. It wasn't the end of our story, but a new beginning. Back home, we danced in the living room. No music, just us. I told him about the journals, how they'd helped me find him again. He admitted he'd been scared to read them, afraid they'd only remind him of what we'd lost. "But we're here," he said, his forehead against mine. "That's what matters." The next day, I found a new memorious painting the house, arguing about colors, ending up covered in paint and laughter. It came unbidden, like a gift. I told Ethan, and we laughed, recreating the moment with a can of paint and no plan. The walls were a mess, but so were we, and it felt right. Therapy continued, both individual and couples. Dr. Larson helped me accept the gaps, to see them not as failures, but as spaces to build anew. Dr. Shin pushed us to keep communicating, to never let fear silence us. We were learning, growing, loving in ways I hadn't thought possible. One evening, I wrote a new journal entry, not to the old Julian, but to us. "We're not perfect, but we're real. I love you, Ethan, in every way I know how." I left it for him to find, and when he did, he cried, pulling me into his arms. "This is enough," he said, and I believed him. Winter settled over Willow Creek again, but this time, it felt like home. The memories weren't complete, and maybe they never would be, but I didn't need them to love Ethan. I knew him now, his quiet strength, his stubborn hope, the way he made me want to be better. We planned a trip, not to chase the past, but to make new memories. We chose New York, a city we'd visited before, according to Ethan. The streets were chaotic, alive with lights and noise, and we wandered, hand in hand, no agenda. In Central Park, we found a quiet bench, and I kissed him, the moment ours alone. "This is us," I said, and he nodded, his smile brighter than the city. Back home, life settled into a rhythm. I started designing again, small projects that felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Ethan supported me, his pride a quiet fire. We fought sometimes over dishes, over plans, but each fight ended with us closer, learning each other anew. One night, I found an old ring in a drawer, one I didn't recognize. Ethan saw it and smiled. "You gave me that," he said it was a promise to always come back. I slipped it on his finger, and he kissed me, slow and sure. The past wasn't gone, but it wasn't everything. We were more than our memories. The final memory came unexpectedly, on a quiet morning in the park. I saw us there, years ago, carving our initials into a tree. I felt the love, the certainty, the joy. I ran home, told Ethan, and we went back to the tree, tracing the faded letters. "We're still here," he said, his voice thick. I nodded, tears falling. "We always will be." Our story wasn't about remembering, it was about choosing, every day, to love despite the unknown. Ethan's tears that night I wanted to leave had been the start, a reminder that love could break through even the deepest fog. We weren't the same, but we were enough. And as we stood by that tree, I knew I'd never want to leave again.